Okay, so now we're going to enter the land of real life. Okay, there are no pure capitalist societies, not even close. There are no pure communist societies, although we say maybe North Korea is closer to a pure capitalism than maybe the US or even Hong Kong is closer to a pure capitalist society. Did I say that right? North Korea closer to communism than US capitalism, pure capitalism. I hope I did. Most economies are mixed, and that just makes sense. Life is not black and white. Everything is a shade of gray, isn't it? And um, these changes, though, that took place that allowed for companies to become mixed, it did take time. Okay, well, sometimes you'll see it, especially if a country makes a rapid change like to becoming a mixed socialist economy, um, you'll see revolution like in Russia that would cause a great change, or in China the 1950s when Mao Zedong came in and changed China. Those were moments. Sometimes during a revolution there can be a rapid change in government system. Cuba in the 50s under Fidel Castro, um, dramatic change in society. But what we're going to find is that our country, or European, Western countries, there was a much more gradual change that took place that turned us really, the United States was largely a much more capitalist society in the 17 and 1800s, especially. Think child labor. Why were they able to work 8-year-olds 40-hour weeks and beat them if they didn't listen? Oh, yeah, the government didn't put rules on businesses, so they could do whatever the heck they wanted to. I mean, in the 1800s, there was no social safety net. There was no old age pension. There was nothing. The government did zero for you. When you got old, if you got sick, they didn't, hands off. Um, and in a large part, that's why we saw things like the Great Depression, where the country got to such a bad place. Really, after the Great Depression, the US took a lot of steps to move into a more mixed economy, accepting many socialist ideas, including Social Security. It's right there in the name, old age pensions, money for you. My grandparents live on Social Security. My dad gets Social Security. Um, the 40-hour work week was adopted during this period. Yeah, I mean, things that we take for granted, like, I mean, we're not working 12-hour days, 14-hour days, 6 days a week with no overtime anymore. No, well thank you, mixed economy. Thank you, socialism, for creeping in to the capitalist economy that existed and then allow for things that benefit people. A lot of these changes were some of the most popular programs in America. And we pride ourselves on our capitalism. Well, sometimes when you get a taste of some of this socialism and you start to get a little more mixed, you love it. Um, you know, the truth is, I think the best example is Obamacare. In our lifetimes, or at least in my lifetime, yours too, right? President Obama, during his time, passed a healthcare plan that was called socialized medicine. It wasn't even free healthcare for everyone. He allowed private insurance companies to still maintain control over the health insurance system, but they still called it socialized medicine. Why? Because it put new rules on insurance companies. One example of that rule is that they had to cover your children till they were 25 or 26 and not 21. I grew up when I was 21 and I got kicked off my parents' insurance when I was like 20. And that was no fun. And I needed to go to the doctor. What do I do? Nothing. When I graduated college, I was looking for a job because I wanted my insurance benefits, just get a checkup, my teeth looked at. Um, Obamacare changed that. Obamacare allowed for, the insurance companies used to not take my mom because she had knee surgery when she was in her 20s. They said, oh, we can't give you insurance at all. They used to be able to say, look, if you have pre-existing conditions, we're not going to allow you in. We're just not going to give you insurance. Sorry. And Obamacare changed that, right? And Obamacare was really unpopular at first. They were saying, all these things, mischaracterizing what it did. But when you ask them about individual aspects of the program, they loved it. And now Obamacare is popular. It's more than 50% popular. It went from like 30% to 60%. Once people tasted it, they said, "Oh yeah, that's pretty good, and it hasn't really hurt my pocketbook very much. I think I'll take it." The minimum wage is a socialist program. Ask anyone if they want to get rid of minimum wage, right? Um, no thanks. We don't want to work for pennies for an hour. It's good to have a low minimum wage because it helps even above minimum wage workers. When the minimum wage went to $15 an hour in California, all of a sudden, $15 an hour jobs were everywhere. So if you had a $15 an hour job, and then all of a sudden I can work at McDonald's for $15 an hour, this job, had to make it 20 an hour to pull people into these harder jobs. It raises everyone's wages a little bit. And it does increase costs a little bit as well. But once you certainly don't want to go back to a time when pay you whatever I want. And that usually ends up meaning I'll pay you very little. So a lot of the time we find that elements that get brought in, that evolve, our book will call it, into making your country more of a mixed economy, are very popular and very beneficial. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're wildly unpopular programs, on the extreme ends of it. Universal healthcare still hasn't passed, no matter how hard they try. And some people would say that it's a good thing it hasn't passed, because it takes longer to get appointments. Like in Canada, where they have universal healthcare, they say you have to sign up like months in advance to see a doctor, where in the United States, it's less. I'm not sure if that's the best example, but there are sometimes elements that are also unpopular, especially the further you get down the road. Like all of a sudden now the government takes over the oil industry or something, or the coal mine, and you say, "Hey, take it easy over there, government. You don't need so much power." Think Russia, in the 2000s, when they went from being kind of free market after the fall of the Soviet Union to being now kind of authoritarian under Putin and very socialist. Maybe they did go that step too far, and you can see sometimes people trying to fight back, and ask for more freedoms, economic freedoms, as well as political freedoms. But anyways, bottom line here, folks, is that all economies are mixed economies. And in the next section, we're going to break down mixed market economies, mixed socialist economies, maybe straight in the middle economies, who's who, what's what. Let's take a further look. By the way, all of these programs down here, they are all socialist programs that are part of the United States. Go ahead, ask someone if we should take away free student lunches. See how popular that idea is. Many of these ideas are not very, very popular ideas.